when people don't have a relationship with God. That's just spiritual word that they're going through of loneliness.
I've been like lonely. Like there was a point after high school, I just felt like I had no one. I was just by myself. I was in my house, felt like a stranger.
What I was talking about, they can't really connect with you because guess what? Outside of that partying, they come back home and they're lonely. It's like a place where they're not really connected, but the only connection they have is just drinks. God says you should not, if you want to or not, you should not sex outside of marriage. And then you tell them, so is God wrong? Do you think you know it better? Then why are you doing it? And when he tells you no sex outside of marriage, those are desires afterwards that we might get mixed up in this like emotions and the desires that therefore he just tells us, do not do this.
School is just pushing out so much bullshit and propaganda to these kids, telling these kids boy on boy, girl on girl.
Some of them don't even know what 1 + 1 is, but they're already learning about this stuff.
Have you ever been upset with God? How did you approach it? Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Bros Think Big. Today we will be talking about the epidemic of man's loneliness, and then we'll be jumping to 1 Thessalonians chapter 4. And we'll go over that chapter, which also kind of confirms the whole topic with the addictions, fornication, being caught up in the world, and what is righteous in the man's eyes, but is not right in God's eyes and what God commands us to do. The reason why we I guess came up with this because yesterday at a Bible study in our church, the pastor shared this in a very profound way that really resonates with what we want to preach on this podcast and stuff, and want to make you guys think about how these two topics really go well together, because men's loneliness has not only to do with the external reasons and how the generation has changed and the brainwashing of social media, but pornography is a huge component of that. Probably one of the biggest ones, in my opinion. So as the internet developed, and I also heard this, my friend actually told me this before, that the reason why internet was popular and it was kind of like corresponding with why it grew in the first place was pornography. So as internet like developed, so did pornography. So that was I think the number one thing that came after internet and Safari and all these types of stuff, which makes sense because look at the industry, you know what I mean? It's just taking a lot of man's souls and even women's, but mostly men, and just changing people into a very different person, which we shared in our last episode. We talked about degeneracy. Check that out. And I think that's really where it comes from. So when you think of epidemic of men's... No, first of all, let's just talk about this, right? Do you think there's an epidemic of men's loneliness? Because when I hear that, I think of something like, oh, men are just lonely. And it's an epidemic, meaning like...
It's very widespread.
A
lot of people are dealing with it. Well, the reason we came with the topic of men's loneliness was because we had someone reach out to us and ask us questions about it. Shout out to Landon.
Shout out to Landon.
Yeah, thank you, Landon.
Thank you.
But when it comes to male loneliness and stuff like that, like I remember being like just lonely, as in like I felt like I couldn't connect to anyone. I felt like I didn't have anyone like me. I felt like there was just something missing. And like there's some cases where that's just simply just a reflection of you. It's not that you cannot connect with anyone else, but you cannot connect with yourself. Yeah. Like that's one way. And second way is that there's multiple, now there's the digital space, right? I mentioned it to you guys this last night in the church. There's the sea, there's the land, and then there's the air. There's also another space where people roam around, and it's a digital space. That's cyberspace. Right? And when we're in the digital space and we're communicating each other through text, through online communities, through scrolling, seeing other people, the thing is, you can still connect with people and stuff like that, but there's still like a barrier to entry. There's still like a barrier, almost like there's still like this distance that you feel like through the phone. Like even like if I text someone, right? I'm not there seeing them face to face and stuff like that. Like, there's a difference, right? Between actually being in someone's like magnetic field, being in someone's like environment versus just texting them through the digital space. And that's why a lot of the men's loneliness comes from the fact that everyone has migrated from land to digital space. I mean, people feel more awkward in person nowadays because they lack something within themselves.
And it's also not being used to communicating with somebody person to person, like looking at somebody's eyes and communicating and making eye contact and actually being in the present.
It's different.
It's very different than having to sit on your phone and having to like text it and think about the thoughts before you type it versus you having to think about it in person and not get distracted by, let's say, what's going on around you. Because even if you're public and stuff and you're like, oh, this guy's watching or this guy might be listening, what do I say to somebody? That can play into not come. That can actually have an effect on you not being able to communicate with somebody or feel awkward in the moment, which is okay, but that just simply shows that there's something you need. There's something that you need to work on, right? But here's the thing, though. The question I asked was, do you guys think that it's as big of a deal as people make it look like? So is there an actual epidemic of men's loneliness? Are men actually lonely to the point where it should be like stressed about?
I think spiritually they are. I don't know if I don't know what the guys, I don't know if he's talking about like physically, but I think a lot of people, not just men, but if we are specifically talking about men, I would say they're spiritually lonely. Yeah. Like I don't think their spirits are clean. Like that's why it's not just being like lonely as we hear the word lonely, like not having anyone around you, but they're when you're around them, right? You don't really connect with them because they're lonely inside. There's just they're just not connected with a lot of things that you can talk to them about. You know what I mean? Like if they are attracted to partying, drinking and stuff, you're not going to be able to connect with them, right? Like that's how I see it with like them being lonely. Like you can't really talk to them with deep conversations. You can't have deep conversations with them.
Does that point to being lonely though? That just points to you not,
Well, yeah, because there's going to be, because look,
spiritual loneliness I understand, because when people don't have a relationship with God, people don't even believe in God. That's just the spiritual word that they're going through of loneliness. Like there has to be someone or something in the presence. You can't just sit in a room, let's say even your eyes closed or just sitting still and knowing that there's still that presence of God with you, right? That's when the Holy Spirit is with us constantly. Is we don't feel the need for someone to necessarily be there. We want it because company's good, but it's not the fact that you need someone to be there. But then there's that people that have to constantly have somebody with them all the time. So that spiritual side of loneliness, I kind of see.
No, bro, I don't think it's there's an epidemic of male loneliness. I don't think that. I think some people have this thought of they can make anything seem like a problem. They can say and victimize themselves. Oh, males are lonely and stuff like that. Like they can actually, like I just feel like it's coming from someone that's victimizing himself, because I don't think there's an epidemic of male loneliness. I don't know what should even, like I can't even define it. I'm not even able to explain other than how I explained it.
Well,
but I think
I mean I can tell you because I've been like lonely like before, like I really connected with you guys, or there was a point after high school and getting on the podcast and actually being a part of it where I just felt like I had no one. I was just by myself. I was in my house and I felt like a stranger, right? Or I just like I was doing stuff that no one understood, and I couldn't really find anyone with the same drive I had or find anyone with the same mindset I had. I think it's that type of area when it comes to self-improvement as well. Like no one can, it's hard for guys to find guys who are driven because a lot of guys are soft.
That's exactly what I was talking about. Spiritually, you can't, they can't really connect with you because guess what? Outside of that partying, they come back home and they're lonely. They don't know what else to do besides that fact of like being in that party where nobody really cares about each other. They're just like, I don't know, it's like a place where they're not really connected, but the only connection they have is just drinks. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like they're not connected with spirit to each other.
Right. So they're using things like alcohol.
Outside of force. Yeah.
Yeah. They're using things like alcohol, smoke, and all that kind of stuff instead of talking to another person, sharing the goals, the ambitions, the struggles, right? They escape with drinking. And when 2-3 people together escape with alcohol, they no longer have a connection with each other but now they have a connection with the substance that takes them away from each other.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Essentially.
I mean, I think there is a little bit, but it's not like a.
The thing is, like, let's just say, like, you're on self improvement, right? And you just have no friends. Like, where what were some areas, or what are some places like that you would go to, like, just find people who are driven, like driven men? Like, where would you go? Like, what would you do? Network with more guys who are just driven and ambitious. Like, what would you do? Where would you go?
If there was nothing that you could find on social media,
Gym.
I was gonna say
the gym.
Gym would be a good place.
Yeah, I think we
Party,
created
church.
Yeah.
Church would probably be
Church,
another
yeah.
place that you can actually find people like that.
Bring it closer.
How close does
Gotta
it
kiss
have to
the
be?
mic, bro.
It really
have
has to be like that. Yeah,
Okay.
it literally has to be like that.
Yeah, I mean, places that you would find to be productive, to be driven in some sort of way, like business or spiritually or physically, and then you would just have a conversation and talk about things that you don't typically talk with somebody about,
Mhm.
because the mindset to get yourself to go to the gym is you're already doing something right. You're in the space where you physically work on yourself. You're in that space. You might not be doing your best in there, but you're in that space. So just the fact that you got yourself to get there is already
Sports are really good.
Yeah, sport activities and stuff. Yeah,
Like you don't have to be professional, but you can at least to be healthy go boxing, judo, jiu-jitsu, swimming, soccer, football.
I think people kind
Better than
of
sitting home.
like overthink like socializing and stuff, and I used to overthink it as well. It's like you see someone like want to just talk to people and stuff like that. Like in a gym, when I was at the NAC, when I worked at the NAC, it's a gym for anyone who doesn't know. But I used to work there, and I kind of like made like a bunch of friends there, as in not just my coworkers, but just people in the gym. I would just like
That's where you met
if they're
Christian,
working.
right?
Oh, yo, can you spot me over here for a set? Right, and then you meet the person, right? Or someone's on something. You ask them, yo, how many sets do you have? Then you get in a conversation, or you're just curious about something. Like,
yeah.
I saw this one dude just doing backflips and stuff. Like, and I didn't get a chance to talk to him, but it's like being curious. Like, what does he do? Like, what is he doing? Or you're in a sauna and see some guys, and like you guys just like chat it up for out of nowhere, right? Even at AFC, like our gym, like you go in the sauna and you just start talking to random people about stuff.
Right. Just ask them a question, get to know them, ask their name, and then just go on from there and that kind of stuff. It's just the small things can get you so far, but the initial step is just you simply getting out of your comfort zone. So a lot of the times when people feel lonely or people feel like they can't find connections, it's not just because of the external reasons like pornography or escaping, coping into the things that are not fulfilling, but it's also just the fact that you are probably too comfortable in your own self that you don't want to get uncomfortable to go out of your way to simply talk to somebody. But if somebody doesn't necessarily take the initial step to talk to you, you take the first initial step to talk to them, and then you will see that you did that person a favor too, maybe because maybe that person was in the same shoes and just wasn't finding connections, but because you made that initial step and you took the accountability rather than waiting for somebody to speak to you first, you make it work. You know what I mean?
And I feel like deep down, like people say like, oh, I don't really care what people think. You know what I mean? I'm comfortable with who I am and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it's like you do care what people think, and it's like programmed into us. And you can have a mindset where it's just like, yes, like you don't care what other people think, like because like, honestly, like, at the end of the day, who cares, right? When it comes to what people think, sometimes because everyone has an opinion,
right?
But at the end of the day, those people are putting their head on the pillow, are not thinking about you. Right, you're in the gym, right, and you're having a conversation with someone, and you like mumble or you stutter. Like they're not gonna go and be like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe that guy did that." Like no one cares enough to do that. Even in the gym, there was this idea that some people like. I used to think that I used to kind of get like I used to feel embarrassed sometimes. Like I'm skinny, I'm going to the gym, I'm like I feel like I don't know what I'm doing. Everyone's staring at me. No one's looking at me, bro. No one really cares. I think it's that kind of ruins relationships as well, and why people feel lonely because. That simply was just
insecurity.
That was not a reflection of what was actually going on in reality. It's a reflection of me. It was a reflection of what's going on inside of me. I felt embarrassed for myself, not embarrassed because other people saw me.
Right. I realized that a lot of things actually changed after COVID. I think COVID was a big impact. other than the fact that it was a strong virus, right? I think it made people be separate, not be united, and more control. They started to control people more because one way to control something or someone is when they're all separate, right? Like, let's just take the easiest example I can give is during a war, right? Like back then, like when they were fighting with swords, like that's what I'm saying. Like there were battles, like to take the territory, right? What they would do is they would, like, soon as they would separate, like they would try to. So there was this movie that I watched, and then it made sense a lot. So what happened was they dropped a tree in front of them, so there was no way to escape, right? And then they started attacking them from the sides, and they all started like panicking because they were throwing some fireballs down the hill. Now they all started panicking and they all like separated, and it was easier for the team to defeat them, right? I think the same thing happened during COVID, right? People started to be alone. They started getting complacent, staying in their rooms, playing video games, because apparently they weren't allowed to leave the house because the COVID was going to attack them as soon as they breathed in the air in. Like it was this stupid made up thing where it made people, like, they started controlling people. And like after a couple of years too, like even when they announced that COVID was not a danger anymore, people were still stuck in this mindset of not leaving the house, just being on their own, sitting in their rooms. As soon as they felt some sort of like a sore throat, oh, I have COVID, I gotta sit in, can't come out. You know what I mean? And that really made people weak and not wanting to like engage in relations anymore, because like the whole thing with like distance being like 5 meters away, you can't shake hand anymore. Now every time you went to shake somebody's hand, they're used to this thing like fist bump,
yeah.
and they get so confused, like handshake. Oh no, we don't do that anymore, bro. Remember,
Was fist bump always popular before COVID? Because I feel like that's when it, I guess, became a thing more than not. Because
no, people just got used to it.
It was just fist bumps.
Yeah, or elbows.
Yeah, or elbows, right?
Or just like an air hug.
As if from a fist bump,
I think
you don't get
that's where it really started from. Like I've noticed with people, they've just changed after COVID. They became like very lonely people. Like they didn't want to go out anymore and do like physical things. What they would do is they would do it virtually.
And what happens is like that need for physical connection or being around people is so deprived that you don't even like feel it like, anymore or anything like that. Like you just end up just coping just so heavily, and you get stuck in that cycle. You know what I'm saying? Like you are just so, like, you're so deprived of it that you just don't know how it works anymore.
Deprived from what?
Like knowing how to socialize and like not getting that social connection with people, that you just ignore it. Like
they don't think it's like quality anymore, or not important almost.
Yeah. So you get so comfortable and so used to being alone that now it's the like if you were, let's say, so used to hanging out with friends or something, or so used to socializing and like that. Like you got so used to being alone because of being alone so much that now that became a norm rather than socializing, right?
Yeah, and there's this idea in self-improvement.
And that's in everything too. That's in everything. Once you normalize things, it becomes normal to you. Therefore, you don't see a problem in it.
Mm-hmm. And there's this idea in self-improvement that you have to be the lone wolf. Like we've mentioned this a lot in self-improvement and on our previous podcast and stuff. And when you first start self-improvement, you're just like, oh, I'm a lone wolf. Like I'm dark and I have this like dark personality.
I have to be alone, bro. Gotta do it all by myself.
And that won't get you any friends. That won't get you any women. That won't get you into friend groups because you're just so closed up. And I think some people like kind of need that journey of being closed up and staying in your lane, which is what we're going to get into in a little bit. There needs to be a balance of staying in your lane, focusing on yourself, not worrying about all the noise and distractions and the sins of the world. And there's a difference between that and actually going out there and serving others, being a part of groups, putting your best foot forward, because at the end of the day, every single human being needs some form of connection with people. I mean,
you just got to find balance. And
even
once
introverts
you find
need connection.
Exactly.
Introverts are probably the most broken people. Like that, as in like they're the most broken socially because they think, oh, like I just like being by myself. It's like, no, you just don't know what it's like to
guess
just
what? Those
be
are very interesting
extroverted.
people where they act like they don't want to talk, but as soon as you drop a topic to them, they're gonna talk nonstop. You're not even gonna be able to stop them from talking.
Mm-hmm.
Like we know a guy in the gym, personal trainer. He doesn't really talk to you. He will just like won't even say hi to you. He'll just like do this or like wave at you and stuff. But once you engage in a conversation with him, it's just so hard for him to like just leave from the. He won't just like leave from it because he's shy or whatever. No, it's just like they're used to that type of environment where they're just alone. They don't have connections with people, and that's why they don't start a conversation. But once you open up to them and you initiate starting a conversation with them, then they'll just go like along and just chat with you.
And you can have a great conversation with him too. Like, you know, Georgie had a couple conversations with him too. And it's just like, he has a lot of knowledge about personal training outside of personal training as well and stuff. And you can just learn so much from that person. And with this example, it just shows that there is a lot of relationships, communications, knowledge, wisdom that you might be missing out from. Just the fact that you don't socialize and you put yourself in this
Bubble.
square and in this bubble to almost put a label on yourself that, oh, I'm an introvert. There's nothing I can do about it. That's just who I am. That's just my label, and that's kind of like my nature, but it's really not. Why do you have to be either or? Why can't you be introvert when there's a need to? Meaning you're just alone. You don't have to
mind
be
your
with
own
anybody.
business, basically.
Yeah, mind your own business. And also be the person who socializes and is completely okay with socializing with people and being able to go up to somebody and have a conversation with them. You know what I mean? Why does there have to be, why is there no gray area or like in between?
It's you to be comfortable being alone and comfortable being in a groups of people and stuff like that. Doesn't mean that you don't have to like be in a group of people and like always enjoy it, always like force yourself to be around people. No,
Right.
There's a time and place for everything. And then there's certain groups of people you do want to be around and people you don't want to be around.
Yeah.
I want to kind of circle back to like the whole like sexual immorality and all that kind of stuff. Just because when chapter 4 opens up, like before we get to verse 11, it just
Closer.
it just talks about like in verse 2, for example, it says, "For you know that commands we gave you by the Lord Jesus, for this is will of God, even by your sanctification, that you should abstain from fornication, which is sexual immorality, that every one of you should know how to possess this vessel in sanctification and honor," right? So this literally just underlines the will of God for us to not give into this temptation of the sexual immorality and, you know, sleeping with somebody outside of marriage, which is one thing that a lot of people don't understand. But before we even get to that, is pornography, just you know, lusting. Dude, some people actually have like a huge problem with lust too, like to the point where now it's a normal thing because you're a man and you feel it, and it's okay to feel the way you do. And not just that, but it's okay to have desires, in my opinion, but it's not okay to give into those desires and justify your actions by just going and sleeping around because you're a man. It just takes you to...
It's an easy way out.
Yeah, exactly. Animalistic nature that, you know, that your desires control you, not the other way around. I think one of the things that makes us humans is that consciousness of differentiating our desires from choosing what we give into or not. Like animals don't, I don't think animals really have that. Like animals don't say, is it morally right for me to go and just have sex with this another animal? They don't think that. Their desires overtake them,
They're
and they
reactive.
just do it.
They're
So-
reactive. You smack them, they bite
They're
you.
hardwired.
You smack
Right.
them, they bite you. You pat them, they start like liking you.
They're simple.
Yeah.
Right. So when people, you know, say, oh yeah, humans are just like animals and all that kind of stuff.
And you know what's crazy with the animals? They have the time of the year where they have that desire to, you know,
Have
pregnant
sex,
the
right?
dog. Yeah.
So yeah, and I also like what it says at the end too, because the pastor also shared this too. Verse 4, that every one of you should know how to possess this vessel in sanctification and honor, right? So it's like people don't even know anymore and don't even have an understanding anymore on how to keep themselves pure, how to keep themselves sanctified on how God actually made us. It's like what did God, with what kind of mission did God made us? And let's talk in specifically with marriage. Like what people don't question themselves anymore on how did God want us to marry our spouse, or how did he want us to commit into a relationship? You know what I mean? And it's like when God is outside of the picture, and if there's no God, then we ourselves just rationally try to rationalize our own actions to justify it and make it right.
And we
So
can't.
because I think that I can just go sleep around and just kind of try different flavors before I
Before
marry
you pick one.
the one, or I pick one. It's okay because I think that way and it works for me, that type of thing. But then we never go outside of us to ask the question, okay, if God designed everything and God created everything, and there's a creator out there that designed everything, there had to be the intention of something when it's there, right? So our desires of pleasure in sex, how did God intend that desire? So since God gave us that desire, what was the intention behind that desire? Was it to just use it whenever we felt like it, whenever we wanted to? Or was it to use it in a very responsible manner, which is in marriage? And Genesis even talks about that too, is man shall mother and father and be united
Move your
with,
mic back. Like that way. Push it. A
like
little bit.
this?
No.
Oh,
Push
like
that,
this.
Yeah. And then bring that closer.
Yeah.
When you turn
good now?
that way, sometimes he doesn't pick up the voice. Yeah.
Is this good now?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so Genesis talks about, therefore, a man shall leave his mother and father and be united with his wife in the covenant of marriage. So it's like, it's very simple and specifically states about how you should be responsible with marriage. Yes. Yeah. You couldn't hear me? Is that why?
It doesn't pick up well.
Oh, okay. So like when you hear that verse, like what comes to mind? Like how do you really explain to somebody about that covenant of just keeping yourself holy and really making that a priority to, live a life of purity?
I think that just comes with a lot of sacrifice too, because even like I don't really meet people who say, "Oh, I'm gonna not have sex till marriage." Like I don't really, in my opinion, meet a lot of people like that. People like who are Christian or Catholic or whatever, they almost like they don't want to bring it up. Oh, sex, like waiting for sex till marriage.
That's hard, bro.
I mean, it's a hard thing to do and stuff like that. And my whole thing is like when it comes to like people having their own ideas and having their own thoughts and their own desires and making up their own meaning, to me, it just kind of, it bothers me sometimes when people, like, for example, are like, oh, who cares? Like, if you have another girl and you have a couple girlfriends, you're young, like, it's okay.
Have fun.
It doesn't make sense to me, like that type of logic, because then you could say, oh, let's go out and kill people, bro. Like, why not? Like, and some people will be like, watch this and be like, well,
That's too of an extreme example,
that's
right?
too of an extreme, but we can take that type of logic to any sort of extreme, because if you don't believe in God and you just make up your own meaning, you make up your own life, you are God, you can make up whatever you want, whenever you want. It's like, where's the actual order? It's just, it just comes down to just chaos.
It's an extreme example, but at the same time, it's like I was feeling mad, therefore, like I was just angry, and I had a desire of like, I'm gonna kill this guy and I'm gonna kill, therefore it's justified. Same way with the relationships, right? I feel sexually desire to have sex with this woman, even though we're not married, therefore it's fine. You know what I mean? Because God will forgive me. This type of things really can get stretched out.
100%.
So I totally agree with what you're saying.
And when it comes to sanctification, the pastor, that sanctification really means putting aside something for a purpose. And when you look at your vessel itself, or when you, like, our bodies are temporary, our soul is not. Our soul is forever. Our soul is eternal. And taking care of your body while you're here on earth, like, your body carries everything. It holds your vessel. It holds your soul.
Temple.
It's the temple. So why wouldn't you want to, kind of do God's will of putting it aside for what it actually serves? Because some people might be like, okay, well, some people who don't believe in God might be like, well, who cares what God's will is? Blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't know where I'm really trying to get at, but.
Well, I think the best way to carry on from then is, okay, if everything has a purpose and everything has to have a structure for it to exist, right? So in order for a building to be firm, it has to have a structure. It has to have a good base, to have a good foundation, right? That's why the example of Jesus saying a wise man
I cannot. Dude, you're cutting out.
Is it me?
Yeah,
Because Mike's like almost the same distance too, but so are you.
but his higher. I think that's why.
Is this good?
Yeah.
How does it look from the camera too? I don't know. Okay,
My
good.
problem is I'm trying to explain why this is a good thing without saying, oh, because the Bible said so. Like, why is this the will of God? Why does it make sense?
Like I said, for there to be structure, let's go outside of Bible and then also connect it with the Bible, right? So logically, let's think about it, right? A building has to have a strong base in order for that structure to, exist. Now, when you have a relationship where you're not trying to have the strong foundation on what you're building your relationship with, that one person that you're going to have your kids with, how is your life going to be found on a strong foundation? You just go around and sleep around and have desires for different women because of your different desires and different pleasures. And people get caught up in this too. Like, people don't even know how to stop from it. They think they can, but then they soon realize that even when they're in their marriage, they somehow try to justify that they're men, and men have so many sperm cells and every single day that it's okay for us to biologically and looking at the evolution on how men are made biologically, that you can go and have sex with women as much as you can, but with women they can't because they only get pregnant once and then they have to carry baby for 9 months. But with men they can just impregnate how many ever women, and now this just justifies your action. Oh, that's just how men biologically are, therefore it logically makes sense for me to do this. And there's no strong foundation. You're just, for me, like, hearing somebody talk like that, they're just a fool. It's like, why are you married in the first place? Why is there a covenant with that one woman? Have as many wives as you want then at that point. You know what I mean? You would just want to. So if I were to explain that outside of Bible, that's really just what I would go to is,
If God says there is no, you should not if you want to or not, you should not have sex outside of marriage. And then you tell them, so is God wrong? Do you think you know it better? Then why are you doing it? You know what I mean? If you believe that what you're doing is any better than what, because God wouldn't make a mistake and tell you something that he's not sure of. He knows exactly what he's talking about. When he tells you no sex outside of marriage, there's a reason why he tells us that, because he knows us. He created us. He knows our desires afterwards, that we might get mixed up in this, like, emotions and the desires that after we experience that, we want to do more and more. Therefore, he just tells us, do not do this. Because I know better.
don't play with the fire.
Exactly. But then when you tell that to people, they can't. I mean, what are they supposed to really answer? Yeah, I'm more right than God. They won't.
Yeah,
I mean,
need
atheists
to-
will.
Yeah, people need to develop this understanding of not necessarily just a strict God that just wants to deprive you from your pleasures and your desires,
And it's
but
just
simply,
rules, but it's
right,
yeah, makes
just
sense.
simply a father who is looking out after their children and wants them to keep them under a commandment and under a responsibility that, hey, take this seriously because it's a very serious thing. You know what I mean? You are, by your actions of having sex, even when you wear a condom or not, there's still a chance that you will impregnate somebody. So if you're doing that act, and then there's a consequence of a baby, now you have two choices to make, and you're young, and now you either have to make a choice of, and with the girls too, that either to abort the baby or have them at a young age, and then now the baby has to be raised in a household where two young parents and stuff with their own responsibilities don't know how to handle it, all this kind of stuff. And he's just simply telling us that, hey, like, this is what it can cause. And you don't need to be a Christian. You don't need to read the Bible to understand that. It's a simple logic. Everything that you do has a consequence. Everything that you do is cause and effect. Simply that. So sometimes fear is a very, very good indicator to help you understand that when you do something like that, there's a big consequence after that. And don't complain that,
You get what you.
it's like, yeah, don't complain after you do something that just brings its fruits to what was supposed to. It's like you reap what you sow.
And it's not only just about, impregnating someone and having baby.
Well, there's
But-
a lot of them.
But dude, you're actually what's it called? You're spiritually becoming unclean, and you're also making somebody else unclean when you have sex outside of marriage. You know what I mean? Because you're not marrying that woman. So once you make that covenant with yourself and with God that that's the only woman you're going to be with, then God tells you, go ahead and you can sleep with her, right? But it's like people are stuck in this transition of like, oh, I'm just having sex. Look, I'm wearing a condom. I'm not really, look, I'm not pregnant or whatever. She's clean, whatever. But it's not just about that. It's the fact that like you are not really supposed to, like biblically, you're really not supposed to see other girls' nakedness unless they're your wife. You know what I mean?
I think when it comes down to your, like, as a man, like if your number one priority is just to have sex with as many women as possible, that's like your number one thing. I think that's just pathetic, in my opinion, because it's
about the experience, Mikey. That literally, this is what they say, bro. It's crazy.
yeah, and they say, oh, like just have fun and like mess around, like who cares?
Experience.
It doesn't mean anything. So why? It doesn't mean anything. So why wouldn't you do it?
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense.
Because now you're taking away the work that you're supposed to put in, the energy from your purpose to you're letting your desires be the priority, and you're letting your desires to now take over the other things and become a priority in
How
your
can
life,
something so
unfortunately.
pleasuring and so effective have nothing in meaning? How can that be? How can so pleasuring, so wanting,
Well, it's just
And
selfishness, right?
it can create a life
exactly, but so effective too that it can create a life
and motivate you. And
mean nothing. You know what I mean? When
Yeah.
they say, dude, it means nothing. How does it mean not? How does it not mean anything when I just gave you like 3 things that it's so powerful?
the thing is, when it
Just-
comes to the Bible and stuff like that, even if someone who doesn't like know the Bible or anything like that, literally God, the whole thing about the Bible is it lays out like how to live and what God intended us, the way to live and stuff. And whether you're religious or not, just read what Jesus said, what like the lessons it teaches, and just try it out in your own life, right? Don't
The morals, ethics.
yeah, just try it out and see how that goes about in your life, because there's a reason that this is like a way to live following Bible, and like it might be the narrow gate, but not everyone's going to go through that narrow gate. So it's narrow for a reason.
And you know what's even like more appealing to that is when you read about Jesus, it's not just him teaching something that is so ethically and morally righteous, but he lived that same lifestyle. What he taught is what he lived. Love your enemies. He lived. He literally blessed those who were crucifying him on the cross.
And we could even talk about like cheating, for example, or lusting after another woman, even when you have a girlfriend. It's about understanding like your vessel, right? Why would you cheat on yourself? Everyone cheats themselves every day by eating shitty foods. They don't take care of their body. They're like overloading their brain with dopamine. They're pretty much just immoralizing themselves every single day, right? I don't know if that's the right word, but they're
Every
degenerating themselves every single day, cheating themselves every day.
Yeah. Dude, I think here's the thing though. When you, Cliff says this a lot too, is when we go into this animalistic standpoint, I think we also look at each other now as objects,
Mm-hmm.
as objects, because the more you have something with somebody that is like sexual relationship, then you're just simply not respecting yourself, that you are worthy.
Mm.
You are like
Every other man.
you,
that
yeah,
just sleeps
exactly.
around with
Your
women.
value goes down because let's say you take a dollar bill, just crumble it, rip it at a specific point, just like don't even treat it well. That's what you're doing to another person as well as with yourself. It's just that people have such a hard time understanding that because they only equate sex with love. They only equate sex with, oh, that person's feeling good. So am I. So what is there bad that we're doing? But you don't understand that there's other things that are going on with it, that you are just breaking the commandment of God. Like God made it holy. It was supposed to be holy. That's why when you're saving yourself to be pure, before marriage, that just simply means that a woman and a man who are meant to be together and who love each other are supposed to be pure for each other. So if you don't want to be pure for your partner, but expect them to be pure, that's just you, asking for something that you can't give.
That's being it's like covetousness.
Covetousness.
Yeah, covetousness. It's wanting something when you're not willing to even put in the work.
Search it up. Is covetousness simply jealousy though? Because I think covetousness is jealousy, but
yeah.
I know what you're saying though.
A strong wish to have something, especially something that belongs to someone else.
Maybe hypocritical would be a better word, because you're being a hypocrite. You are doing something, don't persecute somebody else for doing the same. Because if you if you don't want to be pure before marriage and be a virgin, now you're not, and you justify your actions by just going and sleeping around, and now you want a woman who is a virgin and who is pure. It's just there's the double standard there that just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. It's almost like pride as well.
Then you go into the rabbit hole of like explaining that it's not the same, but it still doesn't justify it, right?
Oh, here's the thing though, bro. In my opinion, right, as a Christian, I think that's a worldly thing. Like, we can agree or disagree.
No, of course. But like, to some extent, when you break things down, like besides the fact that a sin is a sin, right? Like if we were to go from that and also explain it, it's still a little different. It doesn't give you the right to still do, because look, I'm a man, and therefore just because I can't get pregnant, I can just sleep around with more women, and then women can't sleep with guys. I mean, obviously it's still very different from my perspective even now. Although I do really still think that it's just a sin. Sin is a sin. But there's still a difference though. Like at the end of the day, just the same way as men are supposed to be leaders of the house, not just because of like God loves them more. There's just that authoritative and that type of difference between men and women. That's all.
Look, bro, we can just simply go to biology that that's why men and women are different, right? We're just, our mindset, our psychology, our physical strength is just built different because we're just able to handle a little bit more than women are. You know what I mean? There are things that women are better than men. There are men that are better than women. But when it comes to being in control, being in charge, taking responsibility, men are just better at that. Men are supposed to be better at that. So when someone is better at that specific thing, I think it's very humble. And if anything, you're doing a favor for both of you for letting them be in control, letting them take on that responsibility. And you're not just sitting back and doing nothing and just letting them do everything, and you're just expecting something out of you putting in no work. But that just simply means that you're just being humble and understanding how things work. And you're letting men take control and take the responsibility. So, but if we do, I think, go back to like is it the same with men and women, like when it comes to sleeping around and stuff? I think it is, if we look at it from a standpoint of biblically. And
that's why I said it is. It is. A sin is a sin. But I'm just saying, if we were still to dissect it and like go deep down, I think women have
more responsibility in that sense than men do, just because.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, like sort of. Like it's different. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm not saying like one is a greater sin than the other. Sin is a sin. I'm saying it's still different. You know right,
because there's a difference out there. Like men don't get pregnant, but women do. So it's like when you
regardless, it's sexual immorality, right?
Yeah,
so it falls under that category of fornication,
right? Because it doesn't just say, "Oh, well, men can do this," and like it literally never really mentions that.
The perspective I'm saying from is, if somebody was to tell me, is it wrong or is it like same wrong for a man to cheat on his wife or have sex outside of marriage and a woman? I would say they're both the same, because a sin is a sin. But then if they were to ask me, how about this? Take it out of the biblical form of sin being a sin, and then explain it to me a little different. Then I would explain it in a different sense of man being different than woman. You know what I mean? So that's what I was trying to go at.
But when we do have a tool like Bible, and we, tell people that, okay, this is what the Bible says. I mean, you can say that I don't care what the Bible says, or I don't think what it says is true, or I don't need to listen to it and stuff. Well, it still doesn't change the fact that what it says is true.
Mhm.
And it literally is a word of God, and God communicating to us humans to see what he is trying to tell us. So that's why when seventh verse is very important and very nice, literally ties into what we're talking about is, but God has not called us unto uncleanness, but unto holiness. So he wants us to be holy. He wants us to be clean. He wants us to be righteous. He wants us to be good. That's just what he calls us to do. So when he tells us things a specific way, we know that by the character of God and the evidence that we have, he doesn't want us to be bad by telling us these stuff. He wants us to be good. Therefore, if we listen, we're doing ourselves a favor. We're doing something that's smart, not the other way around.
I think sin kind of promises us this pleasure, right? Sin almost,
And false hope too, in a way.
if like pride, lust, gluttony, it gives us this like false sense of like fulfillment. It makes us think, oh, like it's every time you fall into sin, it's you're missing something, right? And you're missing God. You're missing the pain you have to go through to overcome this need or to fulfill that need in a moral or just or a holy way.
Yeah.
Right. But sin, it almost, you fall victim to like your lower self. You fall victim to the devil inside, the devil whispering in your ear. And people who do fall into lust, like for me, like every time that I relapsed or every time that I fell into the trap of porn or I fell into the trap of just gluttony with like over consuming like content or something like that, I felt like shit. And it's not, that's why I say like you live it out. Like go ahead and live out like gluttony. Go stuff your face with a bunch of food and go see how you feel. Or not saying go sleep around with a bunch of women, but go
It's
see
like those who have done it kind of reflect and say, were you fulfilled really?
Yeah, like
Is
were
that
you
something
really,
you would
really
rather
fulfilled? Like
And we had a guest call. Check that out if you guys haven't seen it. He talks there specifically about this sleeping with a lot of women and how he was doing spiritually and how he was emotionally with when he came to that stuff. He personally said, "This is what I used to do, and this is how I felt." So that's like a evidence almost to what do you get when you sleep with a lot of women.
yeah.
Unfulfilling type of like when you don't even like them just for desires.
I liked how he even brought up the example of his friend too, that his friend would have such hard time finding a woman to marry because he used to be the guy that
He
slept
said
around.
he still does. He literally said he can't even find a girl that he can settle with because he's used to that lifestyle.
I don't know. I remember the story different. I remember that the guy changed and he was genuinely looking for a girl, but because of him, because of him that lived a lifestyle of, I guess, such degeneracy, is he said women just could see that through him. Like he said, it was like he had
like
that written on his forehead. They just knew the lifestyle he lived. And here's the thing though, let's think about it, right? You want to find a good woman. You want to find, if you ask any man and if you ask any women, they would want ideally a man that is a virgin, and for a man, a woman that is a virgin. Unfortunately, there's this side of society that they would pick the opposite, which is insane already. Oh yeah, I would actually want somebody who's experienced. But that's just bullshit, right?
Mhm.
But if you were to ask ideally who they prefer in a marriage, they would choose somebody that has not slept around, right? Minimizing the sleeping around part the most. So when you look at it from that perspective, why should you want to be with somebody that has a past like that, right? So it still goes back to you reap what you sow. You had your fun, you had your pleasure, you had your good time, but now what? No family, no real relationship, not something to really be happy about. Because if you had to take all that pleasure like back and say, I would rather not have that, but have a relationship now that I can be happy with, and I can go and talk to my kids about how to be a good person, and not just that, but also be able to tell them that, hey, I lived it. Because you're not going to raise your kid unless you're insane, go and sleep around and do whatever they want, really. because eventually you would want to bring up your own life and say, hey, you think it's difficult, I understand, but I lived it, and let me tell you how. You can't do that when you slept around before. How are you going to tell your kid saying, yeah, guess what? I have the credibility to tell you that you can hold back from desires when you have slept around with 100 and more women. It just doesn't make sense.
Dude, and if you look at the world around us, it's very like sexual, and it sounds like, it might sound like weird. Oh, the world is sexual, but TV, entertainment, social media.
Yeah, Pastor Mike mentioned that too, like the ads and
we're
everything.
We're just surrounded by just sex, and it's just dark. It just, if you really think about it from like a biblical perspective, it's just kind of dark. Like kids are being exposed to this stuff super early. That's why they have porn addictions, and it's just gross. And it makes
you can literally find an
feel
ad.
this disgusting.
You can find an ad. Like there's an ad supposed to be like for a new iPhone.
Oh yeah, I was gonna tell about that.
It's even sexualized. Imagine doing a ad, like a commercial for iPhone, and then you sexualize that, and it literally pops up on YouTube. So, for example, a kid is watching anime or something like, some
normal video,
something like a kid type of video, yeah, and then that ad pops up. It's already sexualized. Like, it's just so stupid. Why?
It plants a seed in your mind already.
And the reason that is so like attractive is because they're just playing these people, the devil,
they're
this
like,
world.
It's funny.
They're playing with
it's not funny at all. Not to me. It's not funny at all. It's disgusting.
Yeah, they're playing with this emotional need that everyone like needs. Like they're playing with fire, pretty much. They're like dangling this big carrot in front of us, and just ruling us, like leading us here, there, causing us to sin, stuff like that.
And that's exactly, and I think that perfectly transitions into why we need that relationship with God. He calls us completely opposite. So if you want to live in the lifestyle where something is just like consuming you and overtaking you, like addiction, like God can really help you with that, bro. Like we can all say that in this room is because we've been through that lifestyle on what it feels like to be consumed and addicted by something, to then completely changed purpose, changed desires, changed perspective into thinking that all that things are good, but under a commandment that God made it with. You know what I mean? You're not rejecting his gift and his desires, but you are also not wanting to use it in a way that's not pleasing to him and in a way that's disrespectful to him. Mm-hmm. Because if he created if he created something with his purpose and with his intention, which is good, and you want to turn away from how he intended that to be, therefore you're saying that, God, I think you did a poor job at what you created us with. And you gave us a bad commandment. I'm going to go outside of that and be a disobedient child and do my own thing. And that is when you turn your face away from God. Mm-hmm. That's when you see the devil and you live with the devil. So it's just like you really have to make a choice.
Dude, even when you look at yourself from a third person perspective, like lusting, like you're sitting in the corner of like your bed, like with your phone, like a dark room, or like imagine yourself in third person perspective with like your thoughts just like playing out in the air, like what you're fantasizing about. And it's just like, you're like a goblin, like you're like a little gremlin, right? Like in the corner of the room. And like, unfortunately, like a lot of guys fell into this. Like I fell into this for the longest time. And it's just, you have to kind of just not had the desire to do it. And the more I went closer to God, the more I just found it just repulsive, in my opinion. Not in my opinion, that's just what it is, right? It is gross when you look at it through that lens.
Feeling that you get, it's like you're repulsed by it. You don't want anything to do with it.
Mm-hmm. And thank God from the Holy Spirit that I do feel that.
Because you won't find a single person that went away from that and says, I miss that, and they go back to it. There's not a single person that you can find. Mm-hmm. Therefore, it can be like just them being crazy and not having the desire. No, it's actually like bad.
And I'm gonna actually read this list of things under the category of sexual immorality, because some people might be confused. Like, okay, when people say sexual immorality, like, what does that mean? Does that mean, okay, if I think about something? Yeah. So, number one, fornication, sex outside of marriage. Of course, if you break the bond with your partner, you're not only cheating her, but you're cheating yourself, right? Everything, how you do one thing is how you do everything.
And you're cheating God, because when you make a covenant under, or what do they call it? Oh, vows, right, or something, or vows.
What are you talking about? In marriage?
Saying your vows, you're breaking the covenant with your woman, and
you're
with
also
God.
saying that, obviously when you're, what what is that thing called when you get married? Is that what they call it? Getting married in church or something? Or like
marriage? What do you?
No, like
a ceremony
they,
or
you know what I'm talking about? When they do that ceremonial thing in church, what do they call that?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Because you like basically not only doing that publicly, saying that you're not going to cheat on your wife,
Reading
and
your
it's gonna-
vows, or what are you talking about?
Yeah, that's what you do.
But in church though, like and it's also like the covenant with God that you're
I
not.
don't know
going
You
if
to
say
there's
I
a
do,
specific-
right? No, like you say, like you say your vows to her in front of everyone.
Yeah, and then like Orthodox also do it in church, that which also represents that you're making a statement
Oh, okay.
inside
I don't
the
know what
church,
that's called.
like a promise to God that you're not going to, and this is the only woman you're going to be with for the rest of your life.
Mhm.
That's also breaking a bond, not a bond, but like a
Covenant.
covenant with God. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm telling you, like if you cheat yourself already, like you cheat on your diet, you cheat yourself, like you know you have things to do, but you choose instant gratification, you're not going to be the best in relationships because it just trickles over into every single part of your life, whether you, like it
are
or not.
what you do, and if it
Mhm.
becomes a habit, then you are that person. So don't complain about it.
Exactly. Number 2, adultery, cheating on a spouse. That's kind of fortification already, but not even just adultery, just like you have a girlfriend and you're just simply just thinking about another woman. Adultery. And like you said, like we might have thoughts and we might get tempted a little bit, but it's what you do with those thoughts and the way of thinking.
Yeah,
Do you entertain it? Do you? Because as a man, like of course, like
You
we're
kind of
gonna-
shrug it off, right?
Yeah. Do you kind of, or do you like sit in the thought and like fantasize it and like play around? Because that's what people do. Like they make up these fantasies inside of their head and make it so real and stuff, and that's what causes them to fall into the trap of sin.
Because
But
that's what feels good at the moment when you are living in the world and being caught up with the addictions of yours.
Mhm.
And that's what feels good, is you going in your own, I guess, fantasy to, and it's dark. It's dark. You can literally see that people, that's why we mentioned this in our previous podcast too, about like what people have actually done with their porn addictions and stuff, and how far it can go into people committing such terrible things because of simply pornography. That's where it started from. So that just points to, I don't know, bro. Is it good? I don't think so.
dude, and
is that it?
what?
That was all it?
Oh no, definitely not.
Okay, I was about to
But
say.
what I was gonna say is that the reason I think a lot of people fall into this trap is because the world does everything for us and causes us to. The world thinks for us at this point. The world lets us just like we have like not like we're grateful to not have a problem with like food, or we have a house over our head and stuff like that. And a lot of people do have these things, but they don't think. Like everyone thinks for them. They're dependent, right? They're
Yeah.
dependent on their addictions, everything outside of them. And there's this quote that's from John Bunyan. It says, an idle man's brain is the devil's workshop. So what that means is like if your mind is just drifting, you don't have a goal, you're just kind of drifting through your life, like not really even thinking about your goals of the future. Guess what? You're going to be the person who's going to most likely step into sin, because the devil's whispering in your ear, oh, look at this
And
woman.
you're just following along, basically.
Yeah, oh, keep scrolling, like look for this, look for that, and that's when you fall into that trap.
An
Idle man's brain. So the better way to put this is an idle mind is the devil's workshop. An idle mind.
So what would be an idle mind?
An idle just means like it's just sitting there doing really
okay.
nothing. It's just sitting idle.
Oh, okay. It's like not trying to develop. Okay.
Yeah, it's like imagine like just a drifter, a person who's just drifting. Like their mind is just dependent and just not really thinking about a goal. It's not
Right.
working. They don't think.
It's the devil controlling them with little strings, right?
Yeah. So that homosexuality, which is kind of controversial within the Bible and stuff like that, like people will talk about how, oh,
God
Jesus
never
didn't say
mentions
anything.
anything. Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't mention anything about it. But regardless if you're homosexual, whatever it is, sexual relations between people of the same sex is sexual immorality itself.
Because this is what people, and me and Georgie actually asked that question to the pastor at the church. So shout out to Pastor Jim. And he answered it very well, because it didn't make sense to me either. Because a lot of times people want to bring up saying homosexuality, like that word itself, homosexuality is not mentioned in the Bible. And Jesus never talks about that explicitly, never mentions that. But in reality, it does. Because here's the thing. This word, fornication, which is sexual immorality in the Bible, refers to all of that list that we just gave. So it's one word that includes all of it in there. So to say that it never talks about homosexuality, it might not say that specific word that you're looking for, but when you read the word fornication, that is what it's referring to. So it's just an excuse that people want to make to do their sins, to live in the darkness.
And there's some references too in like Romans chapter 1, 26 to 27. It says, because of this, God gave them over to shameful lust. Even their women exchanged natural sexual relations for unnatural ones. In the same way, the men also abandoned natural relations with women and were inflamed with lust for one another.
That's homosexuality right there.
Yeah. Men committed shameful acts with another man and received in themselves the due penalty for their error.
Do you also find it so interesting how in the Bible it says shameful acts? Like it's shameful for a man to go and sleep with another man, be in a relationship with a man. It's such an interesting word in the Bible that is shameful.
But regardless,
really
outside of your, like every single human being, they're more than their sexuality. Like, let's just be honest. Like, regardless if you like men, if you like women, whatever it is, like you're a human being with a purpose created by God. You are more than just your sexual thoughts and these things that you know what I mean.
And just the fact that you introduce yourself to somebody and you're making yourself known to somebody by your sexuality just shows how you think and who you really are. Why would you want to introduce to somebody and let the world know who you are,
bro?
Based on your sexual needs? It's like if I were to tell you, I like to sleep with women, and that's how I want you to know me. It doesn't make sense. It's like foolish.
I would hope that you kind of like women, you know what I mean? But
why would you introduce yourself as that person and tell people and give the impression that that's who you are?
Because then they can go like, yo, you pull, bro, nice. Or you have Riz. W Riz.
No, like...
It's insane, yeah.
But people do get confused when it comes to that. Next one, obviously, lust, sexual thoughts, and fantasizing. You're just entertaining these thoughts that you have. And some people just do not realize, like, thoughts and...
actions.
Thoughts are not real. Like thoughts are things of like clouds that you see up in the sky, and if you just kind of focus on this one cloud, oh my gosh, you don't see the rest of the beautiful sky in front of you. You're just focusing on this dark cloud in your mind. It's all about attention and where your attention goes. Whenever you get a thought of like lust, use your attention to drag it back to your goals, drag it back to your mission, set reminders, have people around you to keep you accountable. It's developing an environment to not cause you to have these types of thoughts, because you also attract these types of thoughts and this way of thinking from your environment, whether you like it or not, your subconscious mind. That's why in movies and in TV shows, they have these like subliminal messages behind it, like these messages that you might not see on the surface, but they're there in the background, like a dirty joke out of nowhere or something like that, like, or
a subtle message. Yeah,
in these movies, and like that, you might not consciously see it, but your subconscious mind sees everything.
And that is exactly why those clouds, those dark clouds, out of nowhere, you might just be doing work, you might just be in the gym, you might just be sitting still, and that dark cloud and that sexual thought just comes out of nowhere, and you don't know how to deal with it. You know what I mean? And you give into it because that seed that was planted by those movies, TV shows, the ads in your subconscious just, notified you. And now you have to deal with it. What do you do with it though? Do you give in or not? What do you do?
It's also too like these little kids nowadays, like the school has this like, school is just pushing out so much bullshit and propaganda to these kids, feeding them shit that they don't even need. Like they're telling these kids, oh, like a boy on boy, girl on girl. It's like these kids are like 8 or like 5, 6, 7, 8. Like, and they're learning about this stuff. Like subconscious, like they're so confused.
Bro, some of them don't even know what 1 + 1 is, but they're already learning about this stuff.
Exactly, they're learning about some bullshit that doesn't matter. Like, let them grow up how they're going to grow up, and guess what? They'll naturally, in my opinion, find.
Bro, there's this video on Instagram. This lady holding a baby. That's like, he was like, or he or she, I don't remember which one it was, but I think it was a he. Was like 2 years old, and she's singing a song saying, "Oh, I want you to be gay," and like this shit goes viral. But it's actually
crazy.
Sorry for the language, but it's actually crazy because the fact that babies are actually like sponges. Whatever you tell them and stuff, they like absorb it, that type of thing. And singing this type of songs and you telling them this, and people think this is funny. It's just messed up. Like, this is not funny, bro. This is sad.
Like drag queens pull up to like elementary schools. It's like, what are we doing here? Like, what's
Why
actually
do you
happening?
even allow such thing to happen, right?
Yeah, these kids
in the right
like,
mind.
These kids might not.
Do
like,
they not feel bad for the kids? I mean, obviously they don't.
like they're
right? Bro, it's the
digesting
evil
this and being
world,
like,
bro.
they're gonna grow up and like have just they're gonna attract thoughts and ways of thinking that is according to that type of message. And that's the problem with the furries and these people, and that's why it's bad for these drag queens, these LGBTQ messages, these furries. Not even just that, but outside of that, which is like other things that cause you to sin, like toxic ideas or creating, like having your own meaning and doing whatever you want, stuff like that, like a degenerate lifestyle. It doesn't really make sense. It doesn't work. That's why it's called degeneration. That's why it's called being a degenerate, because you're declining.
And dude, I think it's a simple fact that if you give into degenerate lifestyle, which is, let's just simply put it, not to stretch it out, drinking, smoking, pornography, all these type of stuff. Like, let's just take these three. If you were to give into these things, there is no way you develop. No chance. No chance that you develop to somebody in this life to a higher calling and higher purpose. We gave the evidence. Look it up. Harvard did a study on what happens to your brain when you are consuming this stuff. Look what happens to your brain when you drink. Look what happens to your brain when you consume pornography. Look what happens when you smoke. Your brain cells die. That cannot be good. So it's just simple facts. You just have to believe it if you want to live in reality.
Exactly. And the rest of the list is like kind of obvious. Incest, of course, it's completely forbidden. Everyone knows this. Prostitution, selling yourself, these OnlyFans models online, exchanging sex for money and goods. Obviously, you can just look at that. That's why OnlyFans models are shamed. But guess what? They make the most money. Like the guys don't really know what to do with themselves. Like they might shame it so much, but they're the ones buying it. They're the ones looking. They're the ones entertaining. They're the ones making these women rich. You know what I mean?
They're the ones making it popular.
Exactly. Oh.
Damn.
Yes. Yo, you parched? Okay.
You're saying like people who invite girls and stuff on the podcast and talk to them and stuff, you're saying they're kind of like subtly making them popular
people
too?
that are
Or-
spending money to buy their OnlyFans.
Like OnlyFans models and stuff like that. That's
like, think about it. If no one bought it, they wouldn't make money. Therefore, they would be like, oh, yeah, whatever.
No, I thought that because when you said people
prostitution
shame them.
is exchanging sex. My bad. So it's not necessarily that. OnlyFans is not necessarily that, but it's like
it's close
not-
to that.
It's close to that, not to that extreme, but it's the same
actually,
idea.
No, it's the same thing because they are selling
even
their
worse.
pictures.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
selling their pictures, and
It's more
their
widespread.
body exchange of money. So
Exactly.
same thing.
No, the
Obviously,
reason why I thought
It's
that
just
is
not
because
physical. That's all.
no, the reason why I thought that is because when you said they are the same people who shame them and that also are the ones that live that type of lifestyle is because there are men out there who go on the podcast and stuff and talk to these women, shaming them and stuff, but then they also preach the message that they're high value men and they can sleep around because they feel like it. You know what I mean? So
You know, it's ironic to
thought.
me how the whole society in the world is like almost like sexualized and perverted, but people feel uncomfortable talking about this stuff. Like there might be some people watching this and like they just feel like uncomfortable listening just because it's just like a topic that, oh, I don't really want to talk about this, because all of a sudden you're just like faced with responsibility. You're faced with just this like calling that you're getting.
it's the conscious, it's the conscious calling. What we mentioned, talked about rejecting degeneracy and embracing
Bro.
God.
Yeah.
Is like
Your mic, my man.
God is speaking to you when somebody, is talking about the topic that you want to hear. Like just the fact that you're listening to this video, I think is a message from God and God's trying to send you a message, speak to you and challenge you to, and call your conscious to think that, okay, what I'm doing is probably wrong, or what I'm doing is I probably should turn away from. Now, it's not just a coincidence, and it's just how do you respond to it. There's a bunch of callings, there's a bunch of notifications you get, but the big question that it comes down to is how do you really respond to that?
Exactly. And things like our pastor mentioned this yesterday about rape and sexual violence and stuff like that. He mentioned that just because like you've been a victim of assault of SA does not mean that you're impure anymore. Does not mean you're unclean, stuff like that. Like I think he did a really good job in saying that and stuff, because a lot of people like
that wasn't like out of your will, you know. It was
actually
against your will.
You're not intentionally doing that. And in Deuteronomy, which is an Old Testament, it says it condemns rape and provides justice for the victims. At the end of the day, at the end of time, God, will be there for the victims. That's a terrible thing, of course. And bestiality, of course. I learned this in biology. My teacher said the puzzle pieces just don't fit. It's common sense at that point. We don't really have to.
And that is having sex with animals.
Exactly.
Some people didn't know that specific word.
So, and these other two is polygamy. People, because isn't there like other religions in Islam? Is polygamy allowed?
Yeah, some Islamic countries allow polygamy and stuff. Yeah,
is there more than one wife? Having more than one wife?
more than one wife and stuff, and having a relationship with multiple wives and stuff.
God's original design was one man, one woman.
Exactly.
In Genesis, that's just read the first couple chapters of Genesis and you'll find out for yourself. And then the last one, which is what's happening today and stuff like that, cross-dressing and gender confusion. Transgender, that whole idea, that is sexual immorality. It's not, because at the end of the day, it's like, just because you're brought up feeling a certain way, you're brought up in a new environment, you're brought up into this, like you're already born with a purpose. You know what I mean? Whether you experience a lot of suffering or not, some people might be like, okay, my life sucks and everything's just suffering. Suffering is not bad. Suffering, people have this idea that, no pressure, no anxiety, no depression, no struggles. It's like walking a narrow path and living a true life experience is about experiencing pain, and things do happen that really do suck and stuff like that. But when it comes to being transgender and stuff like that, rejecting one's biological sex through dressing or acting as the opposite gender, this is under the category of sexual immorality. Because you weren't born like that. And it comes down to feelings and thinking. Like your feelings are made up from how you think and how you interpret. It's like all about your mindset. You can totally just rewire your whole mind, like to think a certain way.
And God changes you too.
He does. He heals you. He makes you pure and holy again.
When you put your trust in Jesus, completely cleanses you. You literally see the stories that there was a lady who was in adultery and stuff, and he literally healed her and changed her whole desire in her heart to, and then he said, "Go and sin no more." Not only did he command her to do that,
but she went and sin no more.
And it also shows that in that specific place, she was clean from it. And you see that with other healings, like him raising people from dead, him healing people from leprosy, him healing a lot of people being blind or deaf, mute, like all these type of stuff. And this just shows the power of God. So there's nothing impossible unto God. It's just that we, out of our will and choice, have to put our faith and trust in Him, that we understand that what we're doing wrong and what we're doing is not righteous in God's eyes. We have to humbly go and ask for forgiveness and repent and really want to change, and He will deliver the results. It's just that you have to, out of your free will, want to do it.
And I think people need to really change their mindsets when it comes to living life.
So Mike,
it's not necessarily about just being how like my sex and lusting, and it's about feelings and my thoughts and anxiety. It's about how I feel. It's like, no, life is an experience. Life is a journey. Life is an adventure. It's about experiencing everything. It's about, obviously experiencing according to God's will, like the purpose you have here on earth. Instead of chasing just
experiencing everything that's good, basically.
Yeah, instead of just coping all your life, chase something that you actually find meaningful. And like I said, sin gives you the illusion of being fulfilled and gives you an illusion of finding meaning. And it's so attractive, just being prideful, being arrogant, falling into lust. Like these things are attractive for a reason, but going on the opposite of that is what truly will fulfill you, even if you have to go through the fire.
Yeah, that's why like post-nut clarity, that's what it is. Like you think that it's gonna fulfill you, that you're gonna be happy, but that is probably the most depressing feeling you get.
Mm-hmm.
Is you're just realizing what you've done. You know what I mean? Very shameful, and your whole mindset changes to very, very dark and negative thoughts just arising. So it is a very, very deceiving thing from devil. It makes you think that it's going to fulfill it, but in reality, that is the emptiest thing that you have just experienced, thinking that it was going to be the best.
Should we play a game?
What? It's up to you guys.
No, yeah. Come on, bro. We always do this.
And to like touch up on minding your own business a little bit too, that we mentioned is people want to be in other people's business so much and not worry about what they got going on in their life and worry about what this person's doing, that guy's doing, all that kind of stuff. And, not really focusing on what they've got going on, staying in your own lane. People that are on social media sometimes that are just simply getting views and trying to get famous by, talking smack on somebody else, trying to rebuke somebody else, being a hypocrite even, just simply
Creating a drama, basically.
creating drama on something that has really not much to do with you. Like it's their personal
It's
life.
just a way to
You're getting
bring
involved too
attention
much.
to you. That's all.
Yeah, and it brings a lot of attention to you, and it's for selfish purpose is for you to get views on simply just choosing a topic that has to do with somebody else's life. So, especially as men, like you really need to live a simpler life because 11 says, and that you study to be quiet, and this is aspire to lead a quiet life, and to do your own business, meaning mind your own business, and to work with your own hands as we commanded you, that you may walk honestly towards them that are without, and that you may have lack of nothing. So this just simply teaches you that when you are an honest person in your business, taking care of what needs to be taken care of, your family, kids, your business, working with your hands, meaning you are honestly, truthfully making money according to God and in the righteousness of God, is you are simply just living a life like of nothing. You're fulfilled. Might not have, like we mentioned this too in Christian's episode, is might not have all the materialistic things that you wanted or that you desire, but you feel fulfillment. Therefore, now money and these tools are not what fulfills you. They are what helps you to have some of the things that you wish to have. But ultimately, that's not what fulfills you. Ultimately, what fulfills you is, are you doing God's will or not? Are you doing what God created you to be? Are you the person that God intends you to be? That's what makes you fulfilled the most. Because you can have all the money in the world, you can have all the fame you want, but that's why you see depressed people that have money, is because they have done things to make money, but they have not done what God told them to do. That is the biggest thing. Jesus was a carpenter, but he did the will of the Father and lived a quiet life, minded his own business, and, did what he was called to do until he went and pointed out people's flaws and told them how to live more of a righteous life because of his authority. So,
He didn't tell them their flaws. He told them the truth.
yeah, simply told them the truth and hurt somebody, and it also freed some people from their sin because they acknowledged and repented. All right.
Amen.
Christian culture.
What time are we at?
1 hour and 19 minutes.
We'll wrap it up soon. So we will
Yo,
pick
keep
out
that
a
mic
random
close, bro.
card
Keep
from
cutting off.
our deck. And this is going to be stories. So example of this would be, say, a question that goes, how does God remind you that you are not alone? So this is stories that you can use from the Bible and stuff.
Ooh, challenge.
And stories of your own too. I think it's mostly your stories. Have you ever been upset with God? How did you approach it? Whew.
We can answer that one.
Yeah. Have you ever been upset with God? How did you approach it? This is like a personal story.
Yeah, I've asked God for something and I just didn't get it, but I approached it in a way that.
What was it?
I mean, it was a lot, but the simple one and the recent one I can remember is I had fever and I was asking God to kind of almost like take it away and like help me and stuff. And it did happen for a little bit, but then like my fever went higher. But this is like something stupid, to be honest, because like, but my approach with that was like, I'm not always gonna get what I want, but what I need, right? I believe that it was probably for good reason that I had to go through it. So I approach it in a way that where I trust God and I know that when I ask for something, He's gonna give it to me when there's gonna be time, or if it's meant to be. You know what I mean? Because I'm gonna ask God for a lot of things, but it's His will, not mine. So that's how I approach it.
Amen.
Every situation.
Yeah, and I think that's very important. That I'm glad you said that at the end is His will and not yours. So it's important that when we ask for something, we ask in a very humble way and not in an authority, as if you know that what you're asking should be given to you. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Mine. When have I been upset with God? The amount of times that you can get upset with God because of your own foolishness, it's crazy. But I would say one of them is probably when sometimes, especially back then, like when I would talk to people and stuff, and I really try to communicate my message of the gospel and Jesus Christ and that find God. And this happened a lot with Josh and Alex too, when we would talk to them about God and just would not want to like talk about it or want to hear it. Dude, how is this not close is what I'm curious about.
Better. It's literally supposed to be like this. You're like on the side. That's why it doesn't pick it up.
Dude, I think I have to at this point. So at that time, I'll be honest, I was kind of upset with God and just kind of like saying, hey, like, why don't they see it? You know what I mean? Why don't they understand what we're trying to communicate? Because it was just such long conversations, such passionate from both sides that like they were trying to prove their point. They believe what they believe as hard as we believe what we believe. And soon I realized that like at the end of the day, we can do so much to tell them what the word of God is, what the message of Jesus Christ was, but we can never force anybody or out of their will try to just like that change their hearts. At the end of the day, people just have to come with their own.
It's truth and reality. Not everyone wants to change. Period.
And
not everyone wants to know the truth.
Exactly. Not everybody wants
They're
to
good
change.
at what they
And
are. So
you have to pray for them at that point. You have to, plant those good seeds with love, with patience. And I mean, Georgie gave me this example too, is like Jesus came down from heaven as God and He wanted people to change so much and repent because of His love, but those people rejected Him. So you telling somebody a message of Christ is, how are they gonna just change when they rejected Christ in front of them? Like He was there in person and they didn't want anything to do with Him. So when I'm preaching about Christ, what gives me, like, I guess,
the power,
or the authority to think or even question that, yeah, like, why aren't they changing? Or like, why don't they get it? Like, I think it's not that why aren't they changing, but it's like, why don't they understand what I'm communicating? So and then God taught me that I don't do nothing. My purpose is just to be the mailman. He does the rest. So
talk. You just spread. Just say what God told you or what's in the Bible and stuff. That's it. That's your job. How about you, Mikey?
So I think it comes down to, like you said, like God just putting you through things and just kind of you learning from it. I just remember probably earlier in my journey, like I now understand every time like I could never really nowadays get really mad at God. It's just being really upset and mad at myself. That's just what it comes down to.
Yeah, 100%.
And I guess like when I first started like understanding God and the universe, I guess I would kind of just question it and just be so doubtful and just not understand why I'm feeling so much pain. Like, why am I struggling? Why am I isolated? Why is this happening to me? And it's not necessarily me being upset. It's just me just like not understanding. I just don't understand.
Yeah.
And I guess when I don't understand, I just get upset. It might not be at him, it's at the problem itself. But that's the most times like I can really think of when I'm upset with God, I'd say, because I just don't know. But then I have to kind of realize like that's faith. You don't know. Right?
And that's why prayers.
Yeah, that's why. And then towards the end of my crash out and my meltdown, I say, God, I trust you. I trust what you're doing in my life is doing good. And I trust that what is happening for a reason. And when I say these things, like I just feel so much clarity, right? I feel so much just like relief. Like I just surrender. Whatever this pain that I feel, I'm just going to feel. That's it. Nothing. I'm not going to label it good or bad. It just is. That's it. And I'm just going to go through and keep growing.
It's supposed to be.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe it's supposed to be. That's why you feel that way.
Yeah.
There's obedience, humility, faith, and as well as just the fact that you are trusting God with what He has for you. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing, bro.
Quote of the day?
Quote of the day.
All right, one of you guys got it?
You want to go or? Let today be the day you love yourself enough to no longer just dream of a better life. Let it be the day you act upon it. And it's by anonymous. It's probably anonymous. It's probably some what's it called? Crazy person writing this. I'm not gonna lie, I don't even agree with this.
Why? What do you mean?
Didn't you pick this out like for fun or something?
No.
How does this make sense? All right.
How about this? You read it again. I want you to.
No. Of course, there's a positive side to it, right? But look, let today be the day you love yourself enough to no longer just dream of a better life, right? If we have to get
no, you have to finish it in order for that to make sense. Let it be the day
you act upon it.
Yeah. Let this be the day that you don't just simply dream about a better life and just, go into a rabbit hole of just thinking, oh, look, my life's going to be so much better and just fantasizing. But
let
acting upon it. Let it be the day you act upon it. Now, my question is, what did you think? Was there a specific thing that you thought about this?
Yeah, like now, like just being good where you are and just like being limiting yourself.
Bro didn't read the last part, I guess. Because the last part says the day you act upon it. But
yeah, so I'm sorry, man. No English,
you love yourself by taking action.
I don't speak English, man. I'm sorry.
That's why this guy
just dreaming is not loving yourself. It's almost cheating yourself.
Yep. Cashing out too early, right?
Yeah. But actually acting upon it is a sign of like love and like commitment. You get it now, Georgie?
Cut the first part where I said.
You know the guy who does the ice bath every day?
Yeah.
He's like on like 500 days, like 300 something days.
Okay.
And he that's what he mentioned too. He said the best form of love is discipline because you are showing up for yourself because you know that's the right thing to do and you understand that that's what you need to do, not necessarily sometimes what you want to do. Discipline by form of self-love because you show up for yourself.
Shout out. I'm gonna read this out, and we're just kind of. It's a really long thing, and thank you, Tight Gripper 7213.
These names, man.
It's an interesting username. I mean, so he said this
not real.
He commented under one of our videos talking about how to turn away from the degenerate lifestyle, which is one of our most frequent episodes.
Yep.
Frequent or recent?
Recent. It was before Eugene's episode. So he says one of the most degenerate acts we commit, I'd argue, okay, so he's making a claim, is our complicity in an inherently exploitative society / economic system. So what he means here is us acting and us just kind of operating in this, how I interpret it is us knowing that this society's exploitative, which is we talked about, it's very sexual, it's a lot of propaganda. He said, we call sex or drugs degenerate, but what about investing and purchasing from a company like Apple while they prop up child slavery in Congo to mine cobalt? And that's only one supply chain. So I'm supposed to think you're a degenerate for wanking or getting high on occasion while what? Celebrating the other for success despite what it took to achieve it. Because he has money or nice things. So he's kind of just giving a new perspective on
this different side of
support,
degeneracy.
like saying, okay, you're buying Apple products, but do you actually know how they make the products? Oh, if you buy stuff from Apple, you're pretty much promoting degeneracy itself by knowing the fact that, hey, these child slaves are making this stuff for Apple.
Right.
What would you say?
Or even a perspective that the phone also gives you, opens up the portal to so much information and stuff. But with these type of comments, I understand if you're just simply throwing a different perspective. And I don't know, like we said in the beginning, when you read a comment, you can't know the person's intention. So if this person is just trying to justify the side of degeneracy, which is like smoke and drink and all that kind of stuff, also point out the fact that there's this side of degeneracy that you didn't mention. It's like, is one better than the other, or is one okay? Because then there's a different side. It's like none of them are okay. It's degeneracy on both sides, but I don't think that really applies to degeneracy. You purchasing an, let's say, Apple product and stuff, you're not. I don't know if you're really supporting, enslavement of the kids,
especially if you're ignorant to it. Especially if you're ignorant to it.
If you just don't know. But even if you do know and you're purchasing a phone, you're not supporting it by any way.
And this guy might have Apple, bro. I'm not gonna lie.
I don't know why it's like supporting. I might get a phone because I need to record a podcast. I need to use an iPhone.
Why don't you get a Samsung?
Yeah, right. But then Samsung is also a big brand and it also has probably its own thing. So it's like
you can just never stop.
I understand the perspective and I agree that it is evil on either side. But at the end of the day,
it's what you do with that phone, honestly, bro.
Yeah, it doesn't come down to you supporting it or not. You just simply have to ask a question. Hey, like, what do you think about this? Do you support it or not? And it's straightforward.
And he kind of he said, so I'm supposed to think you're a degenerate for wanking or getting high on occasion while what? Celebrating the other for success despite what it took to achieve
They're both degenerate. That's the simple answer.
It's just, yeah, exactly. They're both just wrong in general, right? Yeah. He called wanking and getting high, not just wanking, but lusting. It's not just you're wanking, because that makes it look like it's something like, oh, it's not that big of a deal, right? But you really look at it like you're a man and you hold this like power to create life, and you're just kind of being pathetic by wasting it on your sheets, right? I could call it that. It's not just wanking. No, you're wasting your seat. You're being unresponsible, right? It's about propping up these things and how, because I could say, oh, am I supposed to be hot? Am I supposed to be a degenerate for, just drinking one beer a week while you're out here spreading all over your sheets the power to give life? It's just me comparing these things and like propping one up to be super bad over the other. But overall, that's not the goal here, is to argue which one's more degenerate or not. It's just say like, no, you shouldn't support these things in the first place. And whether it's true or not, if the company like Apple, they actually have child slaves in Congo to mine cobalt, right? Regardless, we're kind of like slaves to society in that sense too, because we kind of work to make society go around and make the rich richer, right? So what are you supposed to do in this system? Go isolate yourself in like a woods in the cabin and not take a part of it, right?
Just the amount of things that you can always find negativity in and try to justify it with and get your point across. So many that at that point, what are we even doing? Are we trying to solve a problem or just trying to complain?
Yeah, and I'm going to just finish the next paragraph that he said. He said, what's the etymology of degenerate? So etymology is the study of words, what they mean in the past, and what they mean now. Too, in the context. So what's the etymology of degenerate? Does it come from a tiny stratum seeking to control the rest?
But yeah, I find it very interesting like degeneration. Like that word already tells you generation's going down. Like you're not progressing, you're going down. You're not doing productive, you're just going down.
So stratum just
simple.
means like layers of like a hierarchy of social status, like the people on top, the people on the bottom. So so think of tiny stratum, but as like a tiny group of people. So does it come from a tiny group of people seeking to control the rest? In quotes, he put, to be inferior to one's ancestors, to become unlike one's race or kind, fall from ancestral quality. I think it's a definition.
Yeah.
If war has continued for millennia, it's safe to say that all generations since are inferior degenerates. If in evolution we are still in the caves with our intellects, how else could you describe such a continuity? How could you ever move beyond degeneracy when examining with such a myopic lens? And myopic just means narrow, like a narrow mind.
Props to this guy for using such vocab.
Yeah, not trying to insult or pontificate. That's how it is. Express one's opinion in a way considered annoyingly pompous or dogmatic. Okay. He's just offering a different perspective, which he or she, whatever it is, I can't really tell because your name's Tight Gripper. Just saying. But from the second paragraph and stuff like that, I think you're just like you said, you're giving a different perspective to what it really means to be a degenerate. And when I think of degenerate, I think of a declining generation, a generation that's declining. And I think what he's saying is like, from what? Declining from what? What is the standard, right? What are we going towards and what is like below? Like, and that's like kind of how I interpret it. Like what is like the spectrum and what's like the line that people can cross to become a degenerate or not? Like who decides that?
I think how far are we from God is the most important thing, because
being holy,
God,
right?
Exactly. God is all good. He's all powerful. He's all knowing. And he gave us his perspective on life. Not just that, but his commandments, his word, and Jesus Christ came on earth, lived the life with the teachings. So anything that we go away from is us, moving a step down from what we're actually called to be and what we're called to do in this world. Anything that goes away from that is what I would say would be best standard and the easiest standard for me to use on what is right and wrong. It's like, I'm not going to sit here and argue which sport team's better, but I would definitely argue, if you were to ask me, are we going down if we just simply, normalize sexual life? Yeah. Because I'm going to use the Bible to, give you the explanation for that. But just to say, is Chiefs or Eagles are going to win the Super Bowl, what are we arguing about there? You know what I mean?
And I think an analogy I can give to this is, okay, let's say you're trying to avoid plastics, right? So many places use plastics.
And you can't avoid it too.
You can't really avoid it, right? Because this is a fallen world. This is the devil's world. It's the devil's playground, right? So let's say I'm trying to avoid plastics the best that I can to my ability. Okay, instead of using plastic bowls, I use glass. Or instead of using plastic cups, I use glass cups.
Right.
Or instead of using polyester clothing, I use cotton, right?
Right.
I change out all these things that I can control. But when I go out to buy my food, it's wrapped in plastic, right? I might not have a choice, right? I could go down to the farmer and ask for him to hand me meat, like not wrapped in plastic, wrapped in something else. Sure, I can do that, right? I can try to limit as best as I can, not touch plastics or get near plastic. But at the end of the day, it's there. Like, it's circulating. It's going to be there regardless, whether I'm being a part of it or not. My goal is to be less of a degenerate
Reduce
and
as much as
reduce
you can.
as much plastic over time, right? And become
That's a
more
good
holy.
example you brought. Yeah.
Like your clothing, the cups, this water bottle. Like the idea is like, oh, am I being a degenerate for drinking this water bottle? No, sure. I could have grabbed a glass cup. I could have refilled my water bottle somewhere. Or how do I know that water, right, is going through plastic tubes? I don't know, right?
But could degenerate really be translated as far as you doing things that is, harming you in that specific manner, like such as plastic? Because when I think of degeneracy, I like to simplify it and just, point at the obvious, right? But I really like how you went in depth with degeneracy. Is evil is going to be around us no matter what.
Says this guy, because this guy said about phones, like you're not any less than the guy that drinks.
I totally
because you're buying an Apple, because you're supporting that. Apparently, that same way you're saying you're supporting the fact that the meat that you're buying from the store is in plastic, or the food that you're buying is in plastic. Like, yeah, like you're not really supporting that, but you're trying to do it as best as you can. But like, it's not our fault that you just can't help all that stuff.
Our goal is to minimize the wickedness and the evil that the devil is tricking people into as Christians, and to bring people closer to God and the understanding of who God is as best as we can, with love, patience, and compassion.
And I think a good definition here for degeneration, it's the process of decline, deteriorating, the loss of quality. But some other ones is moral or social degeneration is a decline in ethical standards, values, or behavior in a person or society. Another one is cultural degeneration, which is the decline of traditions, arts, or intellectual. We've been talking for too long. I can't really pronounce words. Intellectual achievements in a civilization. Another ones have to do with just like medical science and genetics.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, degeneration can go in a whole rabbit hole.
Yeah, it's like, am I being a degenerate by drinking this plastic water bottle because microplastics are to get in my system and it's going to reduce the quality of my body?
And that you're supporting it.
Yeah,
it's like,
and there's some things that have effect on your body more than others, but it's like, you drinking water from a plastic water bottle is not going to have a big effect on you as you going and eating McDonald's per se.
But let's say like those kids they're slaves and they're mining in the mines and stuff like that. Me buying that iPhone, what if I took that iPhone and used it to like call someone to start an adoption center for children? Is that degenerate? Right? Buying it and then starting something that's good for the world. Like, is that degenerate, or is that just like balanced it out? Right? You know what I'm saying? Like, this is just a different, obviously I'm not going to have you guys answer, but it's just a whole new perspective. Like, if someone, let's just say some kid in China, right? He's working at a sweatshop. I buy a shirt. I buy so many shirts, right? And I give them out to like orphans or something like that. Poor kids, right? I give out to the homeless. Was that degenerate of me? Am I supporting degeneracy by me making this kid work for other clothes to give to other kids? I guess you could argue both ways. You know what I mean? Like, but this kid doesn't have clothes and you're giving it to other people. It's like, who's right and who's wrong? It's like in those situations, you kind of just have to, I guess, follow it.
Exactly, because if you go in that sense, then you shouldn't buy a phone. You shouldn't buy a food that is in plastic. You shouldn't buy clothes. You're not supposed to go in the bank and take the money out because apparently it's getting printed out, and like shit like that. You can always like find something to it.
But when you're also jerking off
like
and
crazy.
smoking weed and stuff like that, like that will make you a lazy piece of shit. Like it will make you. I've witnessed that. I've lived that life, and I was lazy
at some point.
No ambition, no passion, no fire, no nothing, and that was me deteriorating.
No manhood, no testosterone.
Yeah, no test, and I was losing the quality of my life.
Yeah,
that's degenerate. So, yeah,
and through the grace of Jesus Christ, we turn away from it.
Yeah, that's the comment. So I hope we kind of answered it the best way we possibly could. I like the fact that you gave another perspective, and we did talk about it.
If you want to come on and talk to us about anything, even discussing what you talk about, and if you live in the area, you're welcome, and we tell it to everybody. Anybody that wants to come on, comment, and we're glad to have you on and talk about anything. Yep.
And with that, right?
Yeah, that was a great episode. Thank you guys, and thank you for listening. Hope we give you a good perspective, shared our insights, our experiences. If you enjoyed the episode, share the video. Might need to hear it. Like and subscribe as well, because we really, really, really appreciate every single one of you. So with that, think big,
grow
big.
Peace.